Fraudulent vaccination cards are popping up all over the internet, mostly because whether you got a vaccine or not is not basically kept, like no one keeps track of it digitally. What you get is some sort of paper document indicating that you've been vaccinated. Well, if you are a fraudster and you're looking to make some money, you can just sell copies of that document, blank copies, for people to fill out for themselves, and that's literally happening right now. So one account on eBay with the username Asian Jackson was shut down after investigators found that particular account was selling blank vaccine cards. Asian Jackson, the eBay account maintained by a man who works at a Chicago area location of a national pharmacy chain, sold at least 110 blank vaccination cards through eBay, including 50 cards alone on April 11th. Now I wanna be clear about something. That pharmacy worker says that he is not the person who's, someone basically hacked into his eBay account and is using it to sell these fraudulent documents.
Of course.
I don't know how true that is. That's what he's claiming. That's why his name hasn't really been revealed here. But this is a real problem, as some schools, workplaces, even public venues restrict access to people who have not gotten their coronavirus vaccine yet.
Yeah, he's like, oh, to my account, I've been meaning to tell the eBay a couple of weeks ago, it's hacked and a different email, and I happen to work at a pharmacy.
I know, seriously.
I happen to have access to these things, but obviously the hacking. And so I don't know, let them investigate and find out what happened. But look, the real problem is not the fact that these are paper. I get that that's a problem. And
that's a huge problem. That's the heart of the problem.
No, look, so number one, let's be fair. They had to get those vaccines out. So they didn't want to go to the paper version. They wanted to do the digital version. Apparently they ran into issues there and they had to go. I totally get that. I likely would have made the same decision. Okay, of course I don't know all the details of the problems that they ran into because they're not sharing them. By the way, if we'd gone digital, then the right wing would have had, and some portions of the left wing would have had other problems with the digital. Like, oh, they're tracking me, it's Bill Gates, it's Fauci, Tom Hanks, whatever, right?
Don't they already digitally track the kind of vaccinations you've gotten, like outside of coronavirus? Pretty sure they do.
So probably, but it doesn't matter. It's all about optics and politics, right? So would I have minded digital tracking? Of course I don't mind, right? It just says, you know what they're tracking? They're tracking that you got vaccinated. Okay, great.
They're tracking everything you do. Let's just keep it real. You have a tracking device in your pocket all day, every day.
Yeah, if you don't know already, this is now almost everybody knows this. But like my wife and I are having a conversation in the car about someplace we might go on vacation. I go home and on my desktop, an ad for that place pops up.
No, it's just a coincidence.
Yeah, you worried about Tom Hanks and Fauci and Bill Gates tracking you? Dude, you're already tracked in 1,000 different ways. Anyways, so. And normally in a country, people faking getting a vaccination would be a tiny problem. Like in Taiwan, how often is this gonna happen? 0.01%. No one's gonna care because it's not a big deal. That's not the heart of the problem. The heart of the problem is that about 30% of this country doesn't want vaccinations. If we had a normal rate of people who don't want to get vaccinated, just a couple of points, it wouldn't matter. We'd have herd immunity anyway. Who cares what they're doing with their paper, vaccination cards? But the problem is a lot of people are going, no, I don't believe in science. And the Republican Party's like, yes, we hate science too. That's right. Let's come up with a conspiracy theory. And 30% of the country instantly believes it.
I know, but what do you do about that, Cenk? Like, what do you do about it? You can't change that. You can't force people to get vaccines.
Yeah.
The only thing you can do as
is avoid them.
As an employer, as a person who owns a specific venue, the only thing you can do is take control of that space and ask for documentation indicating that you've been vaccinated or people have been vaccinated, so you can actually protect other patrons, other people, other workers, other students, right? That's the only thing you can do. You can't force people to get the vaccine.
Yeah.
The only thing that will persuade them to get the vaccine is if there are limits to what they can and can't do as a result of refusing to get the vaccine. So in order to do that, you need to track it effectively, and they haven't been tracking it effectively. Using paper documents, of course, is gonna lead to a bunch of fraud.
Yeah, of course it is. I agree with that part. I actually want to give a shout out to one of our viewers who made a really interesting point. Deb Wicks using YouTube Super Chat. We love doing the show with you guys. And Deb, thanks for writing in. Wrote in, found out today that only 5 of my 19 employees have gotten the vaccine or even intend to. How are we ever going to achieve any level of herd immunity? I am seriously depressed about this ever ending. Okay, so Deb backs up what Anna's saying perfectly. Now Deb has to go into work with 14 out of 19 people not vaccinated and potentially not giving a damn. Now, the good news is, guys, from science, and you can't look, everybody should be cautious. Everybody's got a different risk, metric for which amount of risk they'll be able to withstand. Let's put it that way, even though it's very clunky. Anyway, but once you're vaccinated, the viral load that you receive, even if you get sick. So I got J&J. I got about 2/3 chance that I'm not going to get sick. But let's say that I get the virus in that 1/3. It's possible, right? But even then, the viral load that you have is much reduced. That's why there's almost no hospitalizations and no deaths. Then it becomes a normal virus, like a cold, right? So I'm not saying don't worry about it, etc. I'm saying go get vaccinated, because you don't want. I always remember that nobody wants to be the last man to die for a mistake, right? We usually say that about the wars, Vietnam, World War I, etc. Right? But in the case of not getting the vaccine, that's what would happen. There's no need to die now. Go get the vaccine. And if it turns out you have it and others don't, yes, you have a slightly elevated risk because of that, right? But it's actually only slightly elevated. It is a low viral load even if you get it. And so I also don't want you to panic. We got to go on with our lives because these guys live with us and there's nothing we can do about them. So you go protect yourself, and if they want to do reckless, weird things, it is a free country, and so we can't make them do it. That it just sucks that we lost a whole wing of America to a faction that just doesn't believe in science, doesn't care, and would rather believe their own mythologies and conspiracy theories than anything closely related to facts.
Well, let me try to give you guys a little bit of a silver lining to this story, because there are some statistics indicating that a pretty good chunk of Americans have at least gotten their first dose. So at least 129.5 million Americans have gotten at least one or both doses of a coronavirus vaccine and have received a free proof of vaccination card with the logo of the CDC as officials push to inoculate the nation. Now, again, that documentation is a little sketchy because of the fact that it's very easily, people can basically photocopy a version of it and fill it out themselves. But nonetheless, this is good news that the majority of Americans appear to be interested in getting the vaccine. Half of Americans have already gotten at least one shot. I do worry about people who aren't able to get the vaccine because of underlying health issues. Those are the people we need to worry about when it comes to these anti-vaxxers. But overall, based on what you said, Cenk, you're right. The research that I've read about this indicates that if you do get the vaccine, the odds of you getting incredibly sick and hospitalized is greatly reduced. Nearly non-existent. But obviously, read that research for yourself. Don't take my advice or Cenk's advice. We're not medical professionals here.
That's definitely true. One last fun thing. Texas and Tennessee accidentally made the fraud cases much worse. Accidentally, I don't know. They put out blank versions of it on their website.
Why? Why did they do that? But why?
So people just started printing them out.
But why would they do
and
that?
saying that I got vaccinated. So at a minimum, it's a knucklehead move to do that because it's inviting fraud. I don't know what it is at a maximum. Are there Republican officials in Tennessee and Texas that might have done that out of bad faith? Because guys, go get out, let's endanger everybody else. They're just faking. I don't know. Would I put it past them? No. But either way, you have to worry about crazy right wingers we all live with less if you go get vaccinated. So do it as quickly as you can. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.